Welcome everyone, Costin here on Serious Gaming, bringing you guys and girls a guide on how to easily record, upload, and potentially render videos for YouTube. I say potentially render videos because it's not strictly necessary. It depends on what kind of recording you want to do. If you just want to record gameplay footage from a game and then just upload that to YouTube, possibly do live commentary to it as well, then you don't need to render. If you want to do some serious heavy editing, or if you want to add post commentary to the video, then yes, you will need to render that video in either Sony Vegas or Adobe Premiere Pro or any other rendering program. There are quite a few of them out there. But let's start with recording programs, or the best recording program out there. There are a number of them, but there's three big recording programs, the three top dogs, as it were. And these are DxStory, Bandicam, and Fraps. And in my opinion, in that order, you have the quality of the programs. DxStory is the best, Bandicam is second, Fraps is third. For a very long time, Fraps was the top dog, but it's been steadily defeated by other programs. Bandicam has the advantage in the sense that it can give you very small files as opposed to Fraps, although the performance hit is much higher than that. DxStory has the advantage that while it gives you large files, or it can give you large files, you can use it to stream. You can use it in conjunction with streaming programs like FSPlit or XSplit to stream to Twitch, or make a local recording, which is actually what the method I use for my Let's Play videos. And Fraps has fallen behind. That's simply how it is. So in this video, at any rate, I'll be covering DxStory and what you need to do what settings you should use to get the most out of it. Now, there are a number of tabs here once you get the program. You do have to pay for this program if you want to use it. There is a trial version, if I'm not mistaken. Never really cared that much about it because it generally lacks a lot of features. And for instance, Bandicam, which has a trial version that I know for certain, puts a watermark in the video. Anyway, number of tabs here, but you don't have to concern yourself with all of them. Like overlay shows your FPS, just leave that as it is unless the overlay bothers you. Though it does tell you whether or not you're actually recording a video or not. Anyway, the first tab you should be interested in is the folder tab. You want to pick the folder where you're going to save the files. So add folder, pick the folder, fairly simple. The write speed, and you can remove it like that. You can also add multiple folders, but select both of them or just one of them, depends on what you want to do. The write speed you should leave to 0 unless you want to limit it specifically, because you don't want all the power of your hard drive to be spent on just writing the file. And it does have a benchmark system which can tell you what the limit of your hard drive write speed is. So for instance, my hard drive write speed is 186, but I'm leaving it to 0. And it will use the maximum available write speed. Hotkeys, simple. Just click on what hotkey you want to bind and pick. And make your choice. I use scroll lock for starting the recording because it's just convenient like that for me. Okay, codec, or rather movie settings, but codec options. There are two main codecs for DxStory. Well, there are quite a few of them available here, but only two are worth mentioning. The DxStory video codec, the default video codec which comes with the program itself, and the Lageref Looselix codec, a free codec which you can download. Just Google it. I'll put a link in the description for it actually, which you can download for free, install, and use that. Quality between them is pretty much the same. I think there is a very, very small difference in terms of performance between the DxStory video codec and the Lageref Looselix codec. because DxStory is the DxStory video codec is the native codec. You'd expect it to run better. But the advantage the Lagerif lossless codec has over the DxStory one is that it gives you much smaller files. We're talking here about 1/5, perhaps even more, than it depends on the options. I'll go over options for both of them. For the DxStory video codec, you want U410, 4x4, low quality. You can enable compression or you can disable it. If you disable it, I think it runs slightly better, but files are much larger. If you enable it, I think there is a performance hit, though I'm not entirely certain about this, but files are smaller. For the Lagerif lossless codec, you want to enable multi-threading. This is for multi-core processors, which most of them are right now, so enable that. It will mean the program is able to use those multiple cores more effectively. And the mode you want is IV12. It's the lowest quality, though there's not much of a huge difference between, say, IV12 and UV12, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, from what I've been able to tell. I'm not saying there isn't a difference between, say, U410, 4x4 to RGB, but the files are way bigger if you pick RGB, like a lot bigger. And you can have some of the highest capacity hard drives in the world right now, and you still would have problems, say, doing a full playthrough for a single game and having enough space on your hard drive or hard drives for that game. Clipping, clip size, don't touch that unless you know what you're doing there. I'm not going to cover that. I've never really bothered using any of these options. Frame rate, stick to 30. The reason you want to stick with 30 is because YouTube runs at 30 frames per second. YouTube videos run at 30 frames per second, so it's pointless to go any higher than that. Also, larger files, bigger performance hit, so stick with 30. Output depends on what you want to do. If you want to stream or if you want to use a program like FSplit or XSplit to give you a file, then use DarkShow output. I'll cover how to handle the streaming to FSplit and XSplit later. If you just want the file from the DxStory, then use file output. You can use both of these at the same time, but it's a really large performance. There is some gameplay footage I have later on in this video to show the difference between recording using the DxStory with file output and the DarkShow output, along with using FSplit as in a sense rendering program that does it on the fly and gives you low file size. I'll just show the quality difference there, and for the purposes of that clip I recorded with both of them enabled, but it is a pretty big performance, so it's not recommended for most part. Stick with AVI, include the mouse cursor or not, depending on what you want to do. Synchronize video FPS. If you're running the game at, say, 60, if your game is running at 60, but you're recording at 30, then disable this, unless you encounter some really large problems with your frame during the clip. Though it's not really helpful to enable this. Scaling, I stick with 100%, though you can use a custom size. My recommendation is to record natively at either 1280 by 720 or 1920 by 1080 to have that resolution in game. Not to set it in the program, the recording program you're using. It's a bad idea as far as I'm concerned. But you can do it if, for instance, you are playing at 1080 but you want to have 720p video. It's an option, though it might cause problems for you. Personally, I play all my games at 1080p and I do all my videos at 1080p as well. There is another thing you need to concern yourself on this page, however, and this is for DarkShow output. You have multiple outputs you can select here, and you can customize these to your preference. I only use output 1, preset 1920 by 1080 HD TV, width 1920, height 1080, frame rate 30, adjust mode stretch, back color black. Simple as that. You can put a custom image, by the way. Blank image file, you can do that if you want to. Also, you have another option here. Well, you have several other things here as well, but the only thing you should concern yourself is this green button here. And this AV Mux is pretty much a render included in the Xtory. Now, I don't know how it handles other files that you, for instance, a file recorded with Bandicam or file Fraps, but it's clearly designed, as far as I'm concerned, to work with the Xtory recorded files. And what it does is it can render videos for you, because the Xtory gives you very large file sizes. You can use this instead of, say, using Sony Vegas or using Adobe Premiere Pro if you don't want to do heavy editing. If, for instance, you just recorded a few minutes of a game, or if you're doing a let's play and doing live commentary, then you can use this if you're recording using the file output in the Xtory. Fairly easy. Like, I have a recording there for Metro Last Light, the Metro Last Light benchmark. It's 2 minutes 38, and I use the DivX 6.92 codec. There are other codecs available. DivX itself costs money, but it is a fairly good codec as far as I'm concerned, and that's why I'm using it. I'm not going to encode audio. I don't even have audio for the specific clip. If you're going to use DivX, however, this is what I recommend. Speed 2, you can crank that all the way up to 10 if you want to, but it will take a lot longer. I generally recommend you don't go above 2 or 3, depends on what you want. 2 is the number I go with most of the clips I actually render in Sony Vegas or with this. 1 pass quality based, target quantizer 1. Okay. And 1080 HD. If you're recording in 720p, or if you want a 720p video, then select the 720 HD profile. Pick enhanced multi-threading, no resize or format conversion, noise reduction off, progressive source, and enhancements off. And that's really it. It takes a while. The speed can be slightly faster or slightly slower than, say, Sony Vegas. I'm not really that experienced with Adobe Premiere Pro, but with regards to Sony Vegas, pretty much about the same speed, pretty much. Moving on to the next step, sound. You can record sound from different sources, speakers. You can add other sources as well if you want to. You have a number of options here depending on how your sound system is. You can remove them as well. You only start with one, the speakers. I don't use the Xtory sound because I use the Xtory with conjunction. I use DarkShow and then stream the footage that the Xtory captures to FFsplit or XSplit. I was using XSplit for a while. Now I use FFsplit, and I use the sound recording from FFsplit, not from the Xtory. But if you want to use the file output, then you have the sound options here. The codec I recommend is PCM 192,000 Hertz, 32-bit stereo. Same goes for the microphone options. You can also enable push to talk hotkey so that the microphone only picks up sounds when you hold down a specific button at your choosing. You can also customize your microphone volume. It's something you have to do by trial and error. The volume issue is something you have to fix via trial and error, depending on your microphone, depending on each individual game, depending on your sound system, all of that. You have to do it by trial and error. There's no answer I can give you with regards to the best volume, because there is no best volume. It varies from game to game. And it varies depending on your microphone as well, a great deal. Screenshots, pointless. The final thing I want to talk about, just touch on a bit here, the advanced settings. The only thing you really should concern here are the processing threads. I've gone all the way up to 8. It starts at 4. It can be less depending on your CPU, but I would generally recommend you use as many as possible. At least that's my recommendation. So yeah, those are the Xtory options. Now, you have two ways of recording gameplay footage and uploading that to YouTube. You can use direct file output, which will give you a file which you then have to render either with Sony Vegas or with AVMux. I'm not going to touch Sony Vegas in this video. That's a whole different can of worms. It's, you know, there's a lot to say with regards to Sony Vegas. It took me months, actually years, to really master Sony Vegas to the point I've actually mastered it, and I still don't know everything about the program. But for a simple solution, if you want to render a video, you can use AVMux, or you can do what I do. Just give me a second to bring it here. You can use FFsplit. Now, FFsplit is a free program. XSplit costs a subscription, but FFsplit is free. Now, for streaming, I'd say XSplit is better than FFsplit, but for local recordings, I'd say FFsplit beats the living crap out of XSplit. And it's a free program, so anyone can use it pretty much. You just have to download it. I'm using the latest test version, test build 17, with this new... this test version has this new look to the program, and also has a new audio codec as well, which is actually the main reason I'm using this new version, new audio codec for recording. In FFsplit, the test version, you have something called Canvas, and now you can use just one canvas, or you can add more and switch between them. There's nothing else to say. Now, canvas are pretty much different options, and in these different options you can have different layers for individual canvases. Right now I'm doing a local recording. I'm not going to switch that because I'm afraid I'll just end the recording, but now I'm doing a screen capture of my monitor. So you have different options here. I just selected capture monitor and picked the monitor which I use as my main desktop monitor. I am using two monitors, by the way, a secondary one where I actually had the program on until this point. You can also add different methods here. You can use screen, but if you want to use it with DxStory, you go to DarkShow device, DxStory video on, and 30 frames per second, resolution 1920 by 1080, RGB pixel format. Okay, and you just add the layer, and you will get a cube right in the middle of the screen, and which you'll have to enlarge all the way to sides to fit the entire image. Fairly simple to do, really. And that's really all you have to do with regards to layers. Volume, test it out, record some footage, see how the game volume is, see how your microphone volume is with regards to that. Just trial and error. Anyway, the final thing you have to bother with is the local recording. You can stream it, obviously, but for the purposes of a local recording, just enable local recording, then go to encoder. The best method of local recording is variable VBR, video resolution 1920 by 1080, or 1280 by 720 if you want 720p resolution. My bitrate is 60k. It's a lot. You wouldn't be able to actually stream it unless you had some magnificent internet connection, which very few people have. Frame rate 30, quality balance 10, advanced options, and selected code preset ultra fast. If you go, the lower you go on this list, the more strain you put on your CPU. The higher you go, the more strain you put on the bitrate. So essentially, the lower you go, the better the video look, but the bigger the performance hit is going to be. Capture, I have my new NVIDIA GeForce GTX 770. And here you are interested in capture playback device. You can select different graphics card. I have the integrated Intel graphics card. Default Windows playback device, because my SPODG is not showing up here, or at least my speakers are not showing up here. My microphone, Samsung CO3U, and you can use a push to talk hotkey if you so desire, which I personally don't. I just mute the microphone when I don't want when I don't want it to be heard I just muted. Hotkeys here, start the recording, stop the recording. This should be mixed, but whatever. Mute microphone, mute sound, you also have that option. Mute all, push to talk, all of that. Finally, at others, if you want to take this footage and then use it, then edit it in Sony Vegas or some other rendering program, then use MP4. If you want to just take this footage and just upload it directly to YouTube, then use FLV, because FLV is the best format for YouTube, in the sense it will take less to upload, a lot less to process. So yeah, it is indicated that you use FLV versus MP4 or MKV. You also have you can also tell the program to organize the files by service name. Specifically, service name means the live streaming site you're using, or the date they were recording on, or whatever. The FFmpeg location relates to the FF split codec. Don't bother with that, really. It's not worth. It's really not worth mentioning. Now, why would you use dxstory with ffsplit, for instance, as opposed to just using the dxstory file output and then rendering? Well, for starters, vastly smaller file sizes. I can show you an example. I have some files recorded here. This file right here is ffsplit recording, which is 300 megabytes. It's about 2 minutes 40 seconds from the Metro Last Light benchmark. This file right here is 7 gigabytes in terms of size, and it's the exact same footage from the exact same recording. I recorded that using the DarkShow output with ffsplit and the file output in dxstory, both of them enabled at the same time. I took a big performance hit, but you can see the difference in terms of size. It's sky high. The difference is sky high. And the quality, well, I'm actually going to show you the footage in this video, and you can tell the difference. It needs to be pointed out that you will get lower video quality from an ffsplit recording, but it needs to be mentioned that when you render a video that you record with dxstory and you render it using either Vegas or AVMux or Adobe Premiere Pro, you're going to lose quality anyway. So there's a loss of quality in the video regardless of what method you use. But using the method with ffsplit means that you get much lower file sizes, and files which you can just take directly and upload into YouTube, or you can just use them through Sony Vegas. Means you have a lot more space at your disposal on your computer, and means it's less annoying to actually, say for instance, edit in Vegas, than as opposed to working with very large files. It can be annoying when, say for instance, you record about 10 hours of footage and that's worth, I don't know, 100 gigabytes or 100 gigabytes, perhaps even a lot more than that actually, as opposed to having, I don't know, just 20, 30, 60, let's say 60 gigabytes worth of footage of 10 hours worth of footage. I've done some serious video editing, and I can safely say that my preferred method is using ffsplit with dxstory as opposed to just using dxstory and then rendering after that. It takes a lot less time. I mean, unless you're doing some serious video editing, or adding post commentary. If you're doing post commentary, then you will have to render, unfortunately. Unless you're doing something like that, then I don't see the point. If you just want to record several minutes of gameplay footage and then upload that directly to YouTube, this is the preferred method. And the performance hit for using ffsplit versus just using dxstory, it's minimal. It's there. I wouldn't say it doesn't exist, but it's really small. At least to the options I gave you, in the sense that ultra fast, the high bitrate, the variable VBR, quality 10. If you have problems with regards to the performance, the first thing you want to do is reduce the video resolution. Then reduce the quality balance to about 8 or 7, something like that. And then if that doesn't work, then I I think your computer is just not able to handle it. There is a performance hit, but I think it's justifiable considering what you gain. Very low file sizes, which are just much more convenient to deal with. And the quality difference is minimal. Like, I recorded that footage using the Xtory and FSplit, recorded the exact same clip at the exact same time, using the Xtory file output in DarkShow, and I'm gonna render that footage using DivX at the highest quality 10. It will take a long time for it to properly render, but I want to show you the actual difference between an FSplit recording using the Xtory DarkShow output and a file output recording from the Xtory itself. I want to show you the graphical difference. So take a look at this footage and tell me which one do you guys think is the FSplit footage. Keep in mind it's a bit lower in quality, tiny bit lower, and which one is the DxTory footage. Then I will reveal it to you guys after about a minute or so from when this footage starts. The one on the right is the DxTory, the one on the left is FSplit. Barely noticeable of a difference as far as I'm concerned. And considering what you gained, much smaller file sizes, I'd say it's certainly worth it. Anyway, I hope this guide helps people out there who are interested into getting into video recording. Keep in mind, if you want to record footage from consoles, it's a lot more complicated. This is purely for PC gaming. For consoles, for everyone, it's a pain in the ass. I wouldn't recommend it personally. Anyway, this has been Costin here on Serious Gaming. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more.